Good evening. Well, I can't even talk. Good evening, everybody. My name is Christina Jarvis, Chair of the Stakeholder Region 5, Chair of the Region 5 Stakeholder Advisory Committee. I would like to call this meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. What is it, March 19th, 2025. Okay. And I want to welcome everybody to our 5th Region 5 Stakeholder Advisory Committee meeting. And I just want to remind some members of the public, because we see a couple of different faces here, there should be a sign-in sheet on this middle table here. If you could sign in there, and then also hold your comments until the end. We'll have a period of time within the agenda to do. Okay. So I'd like to go ahead and approve today's agenda, or make call for a motion to approve today's agenda. Do we have anybody?
Second.
Okay, we'll move that to a vote. All in favor? Okay, everybody's hands are up. Any opposed? No hands. The agenda has been adopted. I'd like to go ahead and we will need a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our previous meeting on February 13th, 2025. Second. Okay.
Sorry, who was the second?
House. Okay, we'll move that to a vote. All in favor? Okay, all hands are up. Any opposed? No hands up. The meeting minutes have been approved. And with that, we turn it over to the OPZ team.
Awesome, and welcome back, everyone. So tonight, as always, we're going to give you a quick update to where we are in the region plan process. I thought we have represented from the Arundel County Public Schools to present some information to you guys tonight. From there, we'll have a breakout discussion not only on schools but other community facilities where we'll talk with you guys and have that group discussion. Then we're going to move back to the vision statement. We're going to once again bring it up on screen live time. We're going to start wordsmithing that to create that draft vision statement for the plan itself. And then, as always, at the end, we'll move to public comments and then review the next steps for the process. So as always, here's our timeline. We're still in that plan development. We're still doing our meetings. We're still developing the strategies, presenting the questionnaire. The most recent one for natural environment strategy closed on March 7th. We're currently processing that information into a summary document, so we will get that over to you guys shortly. And other questionnaires will become available as well in the near future. So when you guys get that information, please be sure to share it with friends, family, neighbors, community pages, so we get as much feedback on this as possible. And then right now, like marked on the screen, we're schools and other community facilities. Next meeting, we'll get into land use and zoning. We'll be presenting and teaching you guys on general terms and stuff to accept when we go into the mapping discussions, which are upcoming after that, where we'll meet and break out zoning maps and start formulating those mapping recommendations. So before we hand it over to Kyle, we wanted to talk about what we've heard so far generally when it comes to outreach within Region 5 concerning schools. Generally, what we see when it comes to the school facilities themselves, it's mostly positive. People are very happy about what the school facilities provide for students. But generally, when it comes to utilization, people are concerned about overcrowding, as well as transportation. You know, what we've heard previously from you guys in discussions are pedestrian connectivity to the school, safe pedestrian connectivity, as well as transportation to get students to and from school. So we will hopefully be able to develop strategies from your guys' conversations tonight to provide within the Region 5 plan itself. Something that's also important we want to discuss is adequate public facilities. So the APF ordinance within the county code is basically a stopgap measure to ensure that commercial and residential development does not outpace what the public infrastructure can support. APF measures include everything from roads, sewer, water, fire, stormwater management, and schools. I think I've covered them all. When a new development proposal comes into the county, we check against APF measures to make sure that whatever is being provided, such as like residential, making sure the anticipated amount of new students is actually able to be accommodated within the feeder district they are being proposed. And it's not just high schools, it's checked against the middle schools as well as the elementary schools. Something important to note that while a cluster may be closed for new residential development, that does not mean that project is put on hold indefinitely, and there's a waiting list period for about 6 years, so that the capital improvement program can catch up and provide facilities that can support those new residential development. So again, while a cluster may be closed, the residential development is not held indefinitely. Additionally, for APF schools, there are measures in the code that allow certain developments to move forward if a school cluster is closed, if they have certain uses they're pursuing, such as workforce housing, age-restricted housing, and certain uses that are specified in the code where they don't need to meet APF measures. So there are certain instances where there may be a school closed, but certain residential developments may be able to move forward within that development process. Yeah, that's APF. You guys have any comments, questions, concerns about that before we hand over to Kyle?
Reading it mentioned that, some of the issues with overcrowding, they were looking at not just new development that creates issues, but the turnover of already developed housing.
Yes, so when we found them looking at the building permits for new residential development against new home sales, what's found is that their new home sales far outpace new building permits. So that most likely means is that while people may point to new residential development overwhelming the school system, it's more likely that new families coming in with 2 to 3 school-age children entering that system that is not being prevented with APF. So while there may be an empty nester moved out of the community with no kids, there may be a family moving in with 2 to 3 that automatically get into school versus residential developments that have to meet those APF measures. Okay, so I'm going to turn on power from the public school system.
Good evening, Kyle Rupp, Director of Facilities. With me is Jeff Hagan. He's the Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction for us. I'd like to take a few moments to talk about Phase 2 redistricting, which I'm sure most of you are well aware of, that we're taking part of right now. So February 1st was when we released the web tool to the public to gather feedback. That tool is still active until May 15th. We updated the end date to the 15th of May. At that point, we're going to be developing the superintendent's recommendation, which will be include some of the combination of the 3 scenarios that were presented to the public, as well as input from the public feedback that we've received to kind of formalize a superintendent's recommendation or multiple recommendations to the board. At that point, the board would vote on it. And then it would go to a public briefing and a public hearing, and then final adoption in November and implementation in August of 2026. Like I mentioned, 3 scenarios were provided. We looked at 3 areas of focus for utilization, distance to school, and assignment stability, along with the other priorities that were listed in the school policy and regulation. So again, update to this slide. This was updated a few days ago. May 15th is the last day for comments for the 3 scenarios that are presented. Again, we'll release the web tool after the superintendent's recommendations, so the public can provide comments on that as well. Please use that. That's our main tool for receiving and evaluating all the feedback. Capital budget this year, our request was $204.7 million. We divided between major capital and reoccurring projects. $137.9 million was major capital projects, so that's your large scale building replacement projects. Reoccurring projects, those are your smaller scale comprehensive maintenance projects. So each year we submit to the board for approval a comprehensive maintenance plan, and we develop a list of projects that we deem priority that need to be funded for us to continue our facilities.
Was that typically cover a single building, 137 million?
So we usually budget our buildings over 3 to 4 years, depending on the size of the building. So that actually encompasses several buildings, the 137.
Okay. Are there new schools going in? Should have probably mentioned this, but are there new schools being built in Arundel County? I know they just did the Crofton High School there, and then the the Severn River High School.
Yeah. So Jeff and his team are actively building, the Cat North Center, which is a replacement facility. So the one on Stevenson Road right next to, Severn Run High School is actually being replaced. It's being put on the Old Mill, campus. And then we just did the Old Mill High School project. A couple of those contracts were awarded today, and we're gonna start building that behind the existing Old Mill High School. And then we're actively working on finalizing design of Old Mill Middle School North, which will be kind of a sister school to Old Mill South, which we replaced, open last year.
Thank you.
One of our priorities this year is pre-K expansion, so the Carver Center located in to a pre-K center, so it'll be about 6 classrooms and help us support about 120 kids, pre-K 4 and some 3-year-olds. We were just talking about Cat North, so that will help this community in the region. So estimated cost for that project is $128 million. We're actively doing site work right now, getting ready to do foundations. And that should be open in 2027 school year.
What's CAT stand for?
Center for Applied Technology. Another program that we're looking forward to is developing the next long-range plan update. So the last one, formerly known as the MGT study, kind of laid out our plan for the next 10 years. This one will do the same. So we're looking for this to give us a roadmap for the 27 through 37 fiscal years. Any questions?
Where's the facility mentioned in Crofton located?
Chick-fil-A. You know,
Oh, well, how bad
yeah,
am I?
right behind Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A on the hill.
Yeah, that's the Carver Center.
Is that income based or is it for anybody?
There's tiers to it. So I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to give you the wrong information, but it'll be a regional program. It is based on income levels, and there's also other criteria for English as a secondary language and some other criteria that makes you eligible. But there is a website on the ACPS webpage that will provide you more details.
So what's your biggest challenge? Is it finding physical space to build a school? I mean, 'cause I know that's always a challenge, you're looking at multiple acres, because it seems like you're building new schools behind the old schools. Is that because of, I mean, you know, for us, looking at zoning, is there things that we could do to help you, or have you guys got land already planned out for 50 years?
I wish I had land for 50 years. No, we don't have land for 50 years. We do have an advanced land acquisition. So what we look at is over a 10-year period. And then we also hired a consultant to do that master plan for us. So we're going to look at next round of advanced land acquisition for us to get property. So just for your edification, a high school, I need about 60 acres. Middle school, I need closer to 30. And an elementary school, 15 to 20 is my good sweet spot. What we typically look for on replacement projects is exactly what you mentioned. We like to replace the building right next to it so that we can maintain school at that building without having to do swing space. And it allows us to upgrade the entire building completely, with all the new building codes, energy standards, educational sufficiency requirements. It's really better for us from a long-term perspective to replace that building rather than renovate large-scale things, especially when you get out of the elementary school. When you start swinging 2,000 high school students around a building, it becomes very difficult.
Do you demo the old buildings when you're finally done?
Typically, we demo the old buildings unless we can repurpose them. So with
Parking lots or something?
yeah, it's usually, for the smaller sites, we make that the parking lot or the baseball field, softball field, play areas for the kids. And then there's just one school year where they're typically without fields.
So in Region 5, what can we do to help you? Is there like 60 acres for high school you're eyeballing that we could help you with? Or?
So we have a secondary school site, already picked out near, this area, if we needed to build another middle school or high school, so it's near Severn Danza Park. Is where that secondary school is. In our master plan, every year we publish, what school sites we have available in our bank, so that we can do it. The one that popped up, within the last 6 years, 7 years was the Two Rivers Elementary School. So we had to do swing space at Piney Orchard for around 600 kids in those, portable trailers until that school was built. So just making sure that we're keeping up with all the new developments and how, some of these developments are sunsetting and have passed, the APF timeline, and then we have to prepare for building another school if one is needed or expanding additional ones. So a typical time frame for an elementary school from start to finish is about 6 years from the planning process to occupancy. So
What, zoning typically need for a school site? Obviously, probably permitted in multiple zones, but is there an ideal one?
So we're exempt from zoning requirements as far as a school site. We typically like to be in neighborhood areas where we're supporting that school and there's a sidewalk network and it helps with our transportation infrastructure. But as far as what building space we could use, as long as it's, there's no issues on the site, we can typically use agriculture versus different types of residential zone.
I have a question about, when you saying it takes 6 years to, essentially build a school, like the Two Rivers Elementary School is overcrowded already. So if you guys,
It's not overcrowded yet. It's under capacity.
I've heard of them. So I could be wrong, but how do you guys take into account the population that work, so they're not over?
Yeah, so every year we publish the Educational Facilities Master Plan. That's a 10-year projection of what we believe our school enrollment will be based off of development, based off of turnover trends in the neighborhood, and we project every single school. And we use that to determine where the need is for expansion, where we need to focus on how many seats we need to build in replacement schools. And that's really the metric that we use for that.
What is Piney Orchard? Are they overcrowded? All the schools in our region are undercrowded?
I wouldn't say that you're undercrowded. Your high school at Crofton is overcrowded. Yeah.
We got that.
Yeah, it should be published.
Right, and just FYI, Two Rivers was missing from that.
Okay, I didn't provide that.
For the principal last week. Their current enrollment is 557, which is 93.1%.
For Two Rivers?
Oh, the actual enrollment is missing.
Yeah,
Okay,
557.
yeah. And the state capacity is 598, according to the chart.
Correct.
That's before the redistricting.
Yeah,
Before this phase 2 redistricting, yeah, correct. So they were in phase 1 redistricting, that's how we established it.
And the bill for, whether schools are closed or open is at least once a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the latest one, there's 6524, which was effective then just in October.
Yeah, and I think the new one's going to the county council in April.
So, for example, here's the Crofton district. Roughly 2 years system.
So the middle school, we just did an addition on that school, finished that up, so that's occupied.
We can share this current legislation with you, and then when the new one comes out, we can share that with you.
I think this information is also in the redistricting info, right?
Yeah.
That you guys just put out too, yeah.
So one of the biggest issues that we have is funding, so. We have a lot of needs in this county, competing needs between maintenance projects versus expansion projects, and then trying to cut that balance and thread the needle on those is one of the biggest challenges that we face.
What is the reason as to why is it mostly monetary reason? I'm just thinking sustainability, and like, you know, you tear down the building next to it, because economically, that's a driver, right? Is there any sort of sustainable initiatives that are being looked at?
Yeah, so one of our major drivers that we do when we look at, feasibility studies for the school, we look at whether we're gonna replace it or whether we're gonna renovate it. We do look at the long-term cost of maintaining the older facility. So the average age of our facilities is about 30 years of age. That was the last time that they were updated. So we do periodic systemic projects in them where we replace the roof, the windows, the doors. But average modified age for the last time each one of those schools received a major facelift is about 30 years. So with the energy standards, the building code requirements, it really, the focus is on having a very tight building, and that's very hard to do with an older building. So replacing that, getting lower EUI really helps with our energy. And energy is one of the biggest operating expenses in my group that we have to pay for. So lighting, power, gas. We have many buildings that are still on fuel oil. So getting those replaced with natural gas or getting them through a geothermal system, that's what we're looking to do.
So now the buildings that are being designed, are they still 30-year or 50-year, 75?
So we look at a 50-year life cycle. So we want to go through at least one renovation on these buildings before we look at, totally tearing them down.
Do you do reserve study, like evaluations of that?
So we're doing a long-range study right now, so we're gathering information on educational sufficiency, facility condition on each one of the buildings, as well as energy, and then, some demographic studies where we're looking at projection trends to make sure that, a third party is looking at our projections to make sure that we're all in line.
Did you guys, I haven't been to the new high school, so I'm just curious, did you do like solar panels or things like that to help with the energy and sustainability issues that you're speaking of?
So we just awarded a contract for a solar PPA. Our go-to is a PPA, it's a power purchase agreement rather than owning the solar panels. I just don't have the staff or the expertise to maintain and operate a solar system or a solar array.
Yeah.
So our preference is to have a third party own and operate that for a period of time. And then we have a metering process with them where we get to use some of the credits for the solar array as well as purchase the power from it. We've done that successfully at our office. We have a ground mounted solar array at our office at Fort Small.
Sometimes you need the same picture to get Parks and Rec. There's 17 acres in the middle of Crofton, that's the old, John Hopkins house, for $1 million. You can't beat that price, you gotta demo the old house, but it'd be a great place for an elementary school.
Oh, I'm sure the historic preservation.
I was gonna say, that makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
It's not.
They're trying, it's sounding.
To the public right now, because I'm a real estate agent, so I showed it to lots of clients who wanted to buy it, and they're all in the demo.
Yeah, so one of the biggest, I would say, one of the challenges that we face when we buy property is it has to go through a state clearinghouse. So the county purchases the property for us, then they transfer the property to the school system. So the school system is a quasi-state county agency. So the property actually gets converted to state property. So it has to go through a clearinghouse process, and I'm sure they would point out that that's a John Hopkins house, that it might have some historical value.
But I tell you, there's like 20 John Hopkins houses, so I know it breaks your heart, but they're all over the place. If they-
There's a cemetery on
They
the
have
property.
like 2,000 or 3,000 acres in around Howard County and Arundel County. So don't lose your heart if they tear it down, because it is a disaster. That house is not safe for anybody. By the time you fix it up, you might as well demo it slow because it's so decrepit. But anyways, so talk to the state people, tell them to go buy it.
I'll put a word in there.
It's in a perfect location.
Any other questions?
Do you guys provide any, input for residential development in terms of a development that's growing and in its growth creates the potential for overcrowding in schools?
So what we do is, when a package gets submitted for a development, it comes to our office. Our team evaluates it based on housing type and number of housing type units. And then we provide generation of students that we believe will be generated out of that development once it's fully built out. At that point, then we give that information back to OPZ, and they determine whether the property or the development meets APF standards or whether it has to be put on a wait list. Then we help with studies to evaluate, what the generation factor should be for each one of those areas in the county. So each feeder system has a separate generation factor based on housing types.
What are you finding the lifespan of the geothermal systems that you're installing? Honey Orchard was built with geothermal and.
Honey
it
Orchard,
didn't make it the first decade.
oh, it's still operating right now.
It's operating now because it was repaired, but I
Yeah.
was volunteering in the school for about a 5-year stretch. And I know that
Sure.
there's a
So-
lot of problems and hiccups, and we're talking about, 14, 15 years
Yeah.
now. So as
that
far
was-
as moving forward, the geothermal systems you're using now.
Honey Orchard was one of our first, right? So a little bit of a learning curve. So we
What's the
think,
average lifespan?
I think you can get well over 30 years on these things. It's really the function that you're looking at, gonna have to replace are the pumps. And some of the heat pump systems in the building, but the actual wells themselves, it's a closed loop system. So minor repairs here and there, you might have a leak, but we use a water-based system to do it, so. If we find a leak, we repair it, we send out a specialty contractor.
Well, that's good news, only because I had that one experience. What is being done with the Cat North site?
So Cat North site will be torn down, and it will be the site for Old Mill North Middle School.
So that's gonna be Old Mill more.
Middle school, yeah. So those familiar with the Old Mill site, we had 2 middle schools, a high school, which totaled about
Yes,
5,000 kids in one location.
right.
Not the ideal solution, so we broke those apart. So south has already been replaced, we tore down the tower. The high school is getting replaced behind the existing high school, and north will be moved over to the CAT Center.
And then in Region 5, we have Meade High School and Arundel High School. Is there, any plan to add on, improve?
But Meade High School is completely renovated.
Okay,
So we got a federal grant for about $113 million from the Department of Defense to help renovate that building. We learned a lot of lessons of what not to do with the secondary school as far as renovation. If I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't renovate a secondary school. It's just a lot of moving parts.
so in doing that, was Meade's capacity increased?
I believe it was increased by a little bit.
Okay, so not really. So I'm looking at overcrowding in the 2 high schools.
Yeah.
So that's where my concern comes from overcrowding in the 2 high schools. in
Yeah,
Region 5.
So we were able to accomplish removing all the portable units from Meade High School. So there's no more portable classroom units out back. So there used to be 8 of those, plus our 20 classroom trailer that we had out there during construction. So all those have been removed. All the students are able to fit inside the building. And we've made it upgraded to the latest educational standards.
What about
So
Arundel High School?
Arundel High School, we don't have a plan for Arundel High School, other than maintaining the building as is right now. So one of the things with redistricting that we're trying to resolve is it's hard to get state funding for a project for renovation, replacement, and maintain the current size of that building. When you have schools that have excess capacity, so South River has excess capacity, Arundel has excess capacity, Crofton has no capacity. So when the state looks at that and they say, well, let's add an addition on to Crofton High School. The first thing they'll say is, what is your adjacent schools? How are they looking as far as capacity? If they have capacity, they'll say, we're not gonna fund it. As long as the capacity that you're looking for can be filled up in those adjacent schools. So that's one of the challenges we're facing. We're trying to balance the system through redistricting. Help alleviate some of those pain points.
Just to clarify, the 2 high schools in Region 5 are Arundel and Crofton. Meade is in Region 2.
considered region 5 or just that students in region 5 go? I thought of it as region 6.
Any other questions? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are getting to the end of our topical presentations and discussions. So again, just to recap, we've gone through natural features, recreation parks, transportation, housing, economic development. And so there are just a few other smaller topics that we'd like to cover, like public safety, aging and disabilities, health. So this is just that space. We don't have a formal presentation necessarily for you all, because we typically just get a couple strategies or issues that come out of this. So some things that we have heard regarding schools, and well, Sam had introduced what some of the things we heard about schools before, but other communities, I think some of you all had touched on it actually on day one when we met in Millersville about more community spaces. And that might be for teens and youth. We had also saw a bunch of comments on our feedback map around the Crofton Library area saying, hey, there's actually a lot of land around here. It might be cool to do some type of community gardens or some type of trail within this area. So again, we sort of see that as, not necessarily recreation parks, not necessarily libraries, it's kind of in between. And so we just want to give you all the space here to discuss any of these items as they relate to some of these community facilities that we haven't touched on. Just to sort of provide some inspiration here, if nothing is coming to mind. In some of the other regions, we've discussed if there's a need for senior centers. We're in one right now. There's also an annex across the street. Like I said, libraries and coordination with other departments about land or programs. For example, I think one of the libraries over by on one of the peninsulas, they rent out fishing poles to help kids and even adults learn how to fish or provide that type of service. So something to think about there. School lands, farmers markets, access to healthy food, community gardens, and like I said, is if there are any concerns about public safety, even within here in Region 5. So again, I'll just kind of open it up. This is my time to share what some of the issues are that you see or that you heard from neighbors, and ultimately we would then sort of translate these into strategies on how to either keep encouraging that thing if it's a good thing, or address it or fix it if it's something that needs addressing. So any thoughts on, again, is in some of the other areas there weren't enough senior centers, but again, we're in one right now, so. Lisa?
You mentioned public safety, it's not schools and community facilities. In what regard to being public safety? In other words,
So-
we're talking about WPNA,
Public safety, thinking about the land necessarily that, say, police, fire, emergency services may use. Or if there is any programming, that's sort of getting into that gray area where we don't necessarily get into operational status, but again, is looking at this from a land use perspective. So in one of the regions, it was identifying land for an enhanced 911 call center. I think.
well, I was gonna say, we keep talking about, expanding, affordable housing, we're talking about, affordable housing and, small businesses on 175 corridor. Is there any discussion that you are aware of, as far as funding to improve or grow the fire department? They're awfully small, the area is growing.
Yeah.
Nothing's been added, there's no new firehouse.
Yeah, so again, if that's something that is of importance or that you feel is an issue, that's something that we can discuss. And ultimately then check with our fire department. Odenton's a volunteer fire company. And we can check with them, and again, there is that slight nuance between a county fire department versus a volunteer, so.
From the last meeting, it sounded like as part of the center development, they were looking for a bigger, because they were interested in the property that the fire, or the fire department, they were looking for them to relocate to a larger property that can better accommodate their trucks. Right. Yeah, I was saying there's discussion about that, and then there's also discussion about the land. So, you know. I was wondering if there had been any talk within the county about expanding the fire department, some of those kinds of things.
But there's watch
In
out.
comparison to what's growing.
Good surgery is fine.
Yes, no, yes.
We hear from them every day.
Okay, so again, that's something that we can look into and contact the fire company, and then the county fire department to better understand, if they have any challenges, and if that's something that we then need to address in this plan.
Is the Odenton Fire Department, facility land, is that impacted by the town center, footprint? Because it's pretty much surrounds.
So the Odenton Town Center is just a designation, and it has its own zoning. And it stretches from essentially across from Fort Meade down past us right here to the Sappington Station Circle, and then everything south of Route 32. So as far as being impacted, they have quite a bit of land where they currently are. But again, I think it's, from what I understand, a sense of whether they might get crowded out or so from where they currently are. Or if that land might be used to a higher and best use and they can move elsewhere and still meet their response times. So I don't know if I would necessarily say it's impacted by the town center, but if that's a pro or a con.
Recently, so with the capital improvement budget going to county council, they do present to the planning advisory board. Those meetings were conducted in February. Just briefly looking at the meeting minutes, there was request for funding for the Wall Chapel Fire Station and some other facilities, but nothing on there for Odenton. But this is just further to the PAD. They'll eventually get to county council. They'll discuss further on those budgeting items. But not only are these meeting minutes available online, they also have YouTube as well that we post all their presentations to as well. So you guys are interested in that, go check that out. They may even have renderings of those facilities they're constructing or looking to construct in the near future. But again, nothing on the Odenton Fire Station. The closest one looks like is that they discussed was the Wall Chapel Fire Station.
So it'd be nice to see us probably also wonder parks and rec, but like a splash pad or some place where residents could cool off in the summer months, but it's fun to like have maintenance is a pool. We have a lot of private pools in the area, or HOA pools, but if you live in HOA or you get off of the very, very long wait lists for the local pools, you don't want to have any place to go.
So again, some of the ideas we had, community centers. Are there adequate facilities for teens and youth? Are there for, right here within this senior center, we're up in the northwestern corner of Region 5. Is this easy enough to get to for other individuals down towards the southeast? Were there other senior centers that other individuals may use that are in close proximity?
Well, weren't we talking about like, just community centers versus senior centers at one time to making, say for instance, this space, more inclusive to other just organizations, not only senior citizens. So maybe you could use it for a teen night or because this space is, closed down a lot of times and wasted space that could be used for, you know, maybe homeowner association meetings or different things like that. Using it for, you know, different avenues within the community, opening that to the public. And then I thought we would also talk about possibly a skate park for the kids, like the teens over
Mhm.
on that other side. I don't know.
Right, the by Academy Yard, so.
Yeah,
There was talk about a skate park going in at Crofton Park.
I think that is happening, right?
That was December.
I think
I think
Parks
that's
and
what
Rec,
Bruce had mentioned.
yeah, I think Parks and Rec is planning on the skate park
in Crofton.
in Crockett, but it's different from what you're referencing.
Right.
Yeah, because I thought
Yeah.
Billy Hummer was working on that, was the lady Delta who was in the group in the beginning. Her kid was involved with them.
Right, that road group going behind the Academy Yard property and pouring their own concrete and quite industrious, right? Okay,
In multi-generational center was the
Yeah.
term
Yes.
that we were talking about.
Yes,
I couldn't
Yeah.
remember.
I just
It-
found it.
in a generational center on seven.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never
Is it-
could think of the word.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
right,
Intergenerational.
because one was just built up in seven,
because
And
there's
that's-
many,
And it's that there's one planned for 7.
yeah, and that is open.
Right, the one in Severn is multi-generational
Uh-huh.
senior center, I guess it's all for Reese.
Mhm.
You know, but how is that designated as a multi-generational center, and this one is basically just a senior center, do they have to go through something special to do that, and then for the teenagers and all that get there, do they offer busing or some transportation for them to use that?
I think it's a matter of the programming and I think just the program, because there is, some recreation space there, there's a, conference room area, and then there's just some, common area that, anybody can use, so let me look into sort of,
It's,
If if it has to be
quite a different
exclusive.
atmosphere, I mean, they're both good, I've used them both before, but it's a different place, and now they got the multi-generational there versus here,
Sure.
that's, it'd be good to find out. You know, whether there's a county designation or whether they, offer the kids some way to get there after school, which is good.
so we'll take questions at the end during the public comment period.
and I think what we're getting at to add to the area for teens and youth is to make sure that they're accessible in terms of like for teens and youth and any seniors, whether it's a walking path, bus route on the move in Arundel
Mhm.
bus route, and so on and so forth. So something to think about, right? If you all have, if you want to digest this a little bit later tonight, think about, if you have any additional ideas, even over the next week or so, feel free to reach out with additional ideas. Okay. I was mentioning to someone earlier this evening that we still go through comments. We get public comments every day even from the public. So we continually evaluate those comments, see if it sort of triggers the need to include it as a strategy within the plan, further refine it, put it into planeries or add it to an additional strategy or elaborate on another strategy. So again, it's this process of continually receiving that type of feedback from you all as well as the public and using that to ultimately come up with these final strategies with that. So again, it's just because we might conclude this conversation tonight. We will be processing these into questionnaires, right? As Sam had mentioned earlier, one had just closed. We'll be having another one in a few weeks. And then another one after that as well, going through some of these issues that you all bring up that we've then translated into something that we can use within the plan and be measured
Okay, and that would be an opportunity for again, you all, even though we're talking about it here, to provide additional feedback as citizens, share it with your friends, family, neighbors, so that we can get some more feedback, we can further refine it some more. And then we would bring it to you later this summer where we can ultimately say, hey, based on several iterations, based on public feedback, here's where we recommend, or this is how we recommend addressing this type of issue. Okay? Okay. Should we move on to the vision statement?
Sure.
Okay.
I think we don't have a lot of comments because it's kind of, well, that's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we will work with this in, I'm gonna try to maximize this as much as possible. So
We voted on it, right, online?
Yeah, this was a doodle poll, right? Or a form?
Yeah, so right, to provide some context is we started with 3 different draft vision statements based on some of that very preliminary input that we had received. Came up with draft vision statements, asked for you all to provide some feedback and vote for one that you just want to start with, right? It's easier to react to something than sort of just create something amongst 15, 14 people here. So y'all voted on one, and then based on some of the comments that you all provided in the open-ended comment box at the end of that survey, we made some further refinements to hopefully incorporate what you may have disliked from the favorite one, or what you may have liked from the other 2, just to try to really blend it all together. Okay, so give me one more second. I'm going to try to, if anybody's tech savvy, I'm just going to. Okay. Just going to minimize it so that we can see some comments on the side, or we can start there.
Usually if I control minus, that's a shortcut key. Like that.
Yeah. So let's start with the one that you all wanted to start with, and some of the comments, if you can see that on the right-hand side, I will blow it up here a little bit. A bit verbose. I think that was kind of one of the general themes amongst all 3, right? Is you think vision statement, let's try to, I'm gonna tell you what, Region 8 and Region 9, at one point, there was a small area plan for both of those, and theirs was, what, keep South County rural. Ooh, that's pretty good, right? That is a vision statement, right? I will say though, during this region planning process, most regions have stuck to, probably 8 to 10 or so sentences. So don't feel bad that, it is a paragraph and not necessarily just a statement. Let's see. So making sure that we're providing enough detail, but it's not so vague, which, is a fine line to really strike here. Changing some of the words to make sure, again, that they might be layman friendly, that we're not necessarily using a lot of planner terms. Okay, and I can just leave that up a little bit for y'all to read. Okay. So then going back to where we want to, again, just start. And I'm gonna stop talking so that you can actually read this, and then we can go from there, okay? Okay. Yeah,
My knee jerk is it's too long.
okay,
I think everybody will agree.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I wanna know who scratched it. And historical heritage. Obviously, I'm gonna say that. I'm a historical lady.
Where do you wanna, there may have been comment that it's not. The question is always how much do you include?
Don't give me the white scratch.
Is that maybe it's not a priority, right? So where do you wanna work it in? Okay,
So I'll just point out that the Vision 2 vision statement is 10 lines long. The Vision 4 statement was 6 lines long, and the Vision 7 statement was 7 lines. So I don't think that we're too far out of whack from what the other regions have done. Too verbose and
And if you just said, the character and heritage.
Yeah, because heritage is kind of a generic term that captures
Heritage is a
historic.
generic term, but historical and preservation are important to some.
The heritage, preserving
Heritage
history,
is
actually.
heritage, heritage is everywhere. Historical and preserved.
Or you can say character and history. I'm just trying to cut down words.
In some regard, historical heritage could be considered repetitive.
Mhm.
Yeah, heritage is unnecessary in this.
So I would actually argue the opposite because
Okay.
heritage is a little bit more of a generic term that would be, on my view, and this is kind of from like my work professional career, that, we see heritage kind of as the umbrella, and then you've got preservation and so on underneath that.
And in 20 years of working, with historical societies local, and trying to preserve and protect, I don't ever remember heritage.
It could be, it's becoming more of a modern term, because I feel like the last 5 years, it's kind of really taken off a bit more.
Heritage doesn't speak to a place, a building.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't, the heritage is just heritage.
So heritage, usually when you look at historic preservation and stuff, you look at buildings, cultural landscape, you look at a district,
Mhm.
everything, right? So that's why, to me, heritage sounds a little bit more appropriate, because we've got, you know, a little bit of everything. We've got buildings, we've got, you know, roads, we've got, landscapes.
I will respectfully.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine, and that's why we have this conversation, right?
I think I agree with Christine that heritage is more of an umbrella statement where historical speaks to more of a piece of land or a building. And I think with our business statement, it should be more umbrella as opposed to pinpointed. Yeah.
There are areas within Region 5 that have struggled for decades to be recognized as historically significant and to be protected, preserved, and not plowed over, and not just Woodwardville. So that's where I'm. And heritage does not cover that. I can't walk into someplace and say, I represent, you know, the heritage of Woodwardville. No, I represent the historical buildings and roads and the history and the culture of what once was and should be protected. And the same can be said for, the historical area of Odenton, of downtown Odenton. I can't tell you how many times that's been threatened with development repeatedly. They have fought very, very hard to keep their tiny little area, considered and to be preserved.
Well, I totally wrote it in one sentence. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Go for it. Is an affordable, safe, economic, growing, community preserving.
I might have to slow down for Mark.
No, say it first,
Okay.
say it first, see if you all
I thought you
want.
were trying to type it, sorry.
No, I was coming up with my own thought here, go ahead, John.
Is an affordable, safe, economically growing community preserving natural environment, facilities and culture. I think I hit everything up there.
I think except for the transportation access, right? That's the one
Well,
thing.
you can add accessible, you can add
Alright,
Yeah.
so,
hedges, but.
I'm not seeing enough heads nodding yet to Charlie.
I think it's
If
something.
if so be,
That's in the entire statement or just replace the first?
let me jot that down so you can actually see it, so an affordable community,
An affordable, safe, economically growing community, preserving natural environment, facilities and culture.
okay. I'm a pogo stick typer here, so it might have to slow down.
Where are you
Is
now?
it similar to number, is it number 2 that was abbreviated? That was like kind of the list form of this?
Do you want- let's take a look at number 2 here again.
Yeah, because I remember this one being short.
Let me, blow it up a little bit.
Yeah,
That might give you a better springboard. to
Sure,
start off.
I think mine's a better springboard. That's still busy, it's still got too much, there's not enough, there's too much grant.
I more so meant if Mark was gonna start to ad hoc, like, splice something together, unless we just go with number 4 right now. Throw it up on the screen.
You can write mine.
No, one's called before.
We can-
We have to bear
Might have to shoot your, note. here. So, while we've got it open, and Charlie's coming over here, is there anything, you know, again, here that you do wanna just grab? Okay.
Yeah, I like number 2 because it's a list.
Okay.
I don't know who voted the most for number 3, but.
No,
Okay,
I don't know who voted for that, but it's too long. Healthy farmer community.
Doesn't have to be, it's created, I mean, it already exists.
Mark, I want to make sure too that we are also considering the vision statement questionnaire that 1,150 Region 5 responded to. And that the vision statement reflects what's, the responses were.
So all of these pieces were pulled directly from that. So remember when, I can't remember, was it our second meeting, maybe? That we had, the little graphs up that were basically like, yes, this is important, no, this is not that important. These were generated from that. So there were bits and pieces that were like, I remember the first 3 were about the environment and everybody was like, oh yeah, we won't, like, this is important to us. So that's why you see the, natural, now I like,
Yeah, I would
let's
love to
change
see the word.
the natural environment, sustainable practices.
The community values its green space, but I feel like the community wants more green space. So that maybe the community values and conservation of green spaces. And the natural environment. And I'm not sure if everybody knows what sustainable practices, that's kind of a jargony, intent, term, we should be. You know, I think that would be more specific about what we're doing about that. But I think that, yeah, the environment was prominent, it's kind of buried in this.
It's here to return, just separate it.
A second, and I'm terrible at reading out loud, read to you what our number 2 option was. A healthy vibrant community is created where natural areas, parks, historic features, and established neighborhoods are preserved. Schools are supported and expanded efficiently, safe, multimodal transportation is advanced, ensuring connectivity
and commercial areas are thought on the vote.
I voted for number three. I voted for number two too, so who here voted for number three?
I voted for number two. I feel number two, it's a one long run-on sentence.
It could be the
And even number two lacks the substance of number one, the detail. But let me ask you, Lisa, would it acceptable, this one sentence we started looking at, the first sentence, of whether where the local neighborhood's unique character and historical heritage, what if it read the local neighborhood's unique character and history are preserved? Would that be acceptable to you? You want the word heritage?
I don't want to.
Well, let's look at that. Let's look at that.
In number two, what I just read, I understand what you about the run-on. But it says natural areas, parks, historical features, established neighborhoods, schools. I agree with you. I think number two could be more easily tweaked than this gigantic paragraph, in my opinion. Because it simply says in number two, and I'm happy with it, historic features, that's all it says. But it also talks about natural areas. And it could be, preserve natural areas or expand natural areas, or, I think number two could, it's just my 2 cents, could be much more easily tweaked than that gigantic paragraph.
And I was not here for any of this, so. The only, that's right. So the only input I can give to this is the experience that I've had in vision statements. Is kind of different than what you all seem to be trying to do in trying to put everything into it. My experience with vision statements is they're incredibly concise. And from vision statements come objectives, and from objectives come goals. And it's like a 3-step process to where the vision statement is super specific. Now, what objectives do you want to create from within that vision? And then what goals do you want to achieve based on your objectives? So I think you have a lot of goals and objectives in number 3. But that's just my take on what constitutes a vision versus objectives and goals.
I think that's very good. Because South County's got that great catchphrase.
Yeah. And that might be the way to start.
And ours actually just no more fried chicken. I think it might be. Please. Comma, please.
Save the dairy.
Save the dairy.
More fried chicken. Yeah. We can't, no, that would be an issue, right? Yeah, I know. Copyright, trademark, something.
Yeah, it was closer to a vision statement than 3.
So, collectively, are we as a group more interested in trying to fix number 3, or should we be trying to adjust number 2?
And personally, I kind of agree with, like, a vision statement is something more simple that you can go to and use as your guide to pull out more detail later. All right, keep going back to the more complex paragraph of number 3, I feel like things get muddled, so I personally vote more for vision statement for number 2.
Corey?
So is like there's a consensus that most people went with number 2,
Yeah.
so how does number 3 become?
Yeah,
an
that's what I
example?
would like to know.
If you like, I can pull up the.
Anonymous or whatever,
So-
but it just-
How about just numbers?
So again, are we as a group sitting here now collectively more interested in making adjustments to number 3 or to number 2? I say number 2, she says number 2. Anybody want to chime in?
It does sound like number 2, but do we wanna do a raise of hands? Like, is that gonna make folks feel more comfortable if folks don't feel comfortable doing that? Cause I recognize this might make some uncomfortable, although I feel like I see a majority of head nodders. Like,
That nodding is good, right? And you can pull from one end,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Right,
exactly.
it's, let's get the best of all of these, right? So,
But I think
if you want to start with right 2, like, you know.
But I
it's-
will say, these were pulled from those visioning questionnaires. So the reason why you see this listing so many things is because if you were to pull that up and look at those, we did have a majority of folks kind of voting to the right of center on a lot of things. Which is, I think, why this is so jam-packed with various items. So perhaps we could do the exercise of like, are there things in here that really aren't like those big overarching visions that we see? To the point that making it a bit more concise.
And Alex was suggesting that if we can alter number 2 to be more of a 3-sentence.
Exactly, and that's my point, that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Yep, Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is there a saying, is there an underlying?
Exactly.
theme to
Right.
this list?
a vision.
Exactly.
Come up with that one short.
I just think this one hits on
It's
everything.
very hard.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Well, I was kind of saying, even with this, pulling out a couple themes, just trying to either, if we wanted to go in a more simplistic route as opposed to going toward more simplistic, but, preservation, a big thing, right? Seems to be coming up, you know, neighborhoods, history, all the things, right? Intentional expansion. You know, like expand our parks, expand our natural environment, expand our schools, you know, intentional expansion, right? Or maybe a different adjective to that. And then connectivity, you know, connecting communities, connecting neighborhoods, connecting, like, those seem to be the kind of the themes of a lot of these different listed things.
And they're pretty much already in there.
Right.
I agree with you, where it says thoughtfully redevelop. I agree with you, intentional growth, so would it, I don't know, Layman, thoughtfully redevelop and, intentionality in future growth, or I don't know.
I don't think you have to put what I would call fluff language to it.
Right.
It's like, it's intentional growth, right?
Yeah,
Right, okay.
but we don't want just growth.
Yeah, we don't
I
want
don't think
growth.
everybody wants just growth
Yeah.
here, because we think we're kind of capping off, right? So we want the growth to go in the direction where it's gonna benefit the community, you know, green space, and community centers, parks, and kind of, you know, again, relatively neighborhood appropriate infill and things like that, intentional growth, I think. You know, again, adding adjectives that might help to kind of define what growth or preservation means or connectivity means, you know.
I would add sort of neighborhood, I don't know how to put this in words, but maybe neighborhood feel as one of the themes, because a lot of these talk about neighborhood. The neighborhood pride, the neighborhood feel, I think one of the tensions that I've felt throughout like the planning process, that we have a lot of very distinct neighborhoods, and we're trying to get like community centers and service those neighborhoods, but we also have these commercial corridors that run through and kind of disconnect some of these neighborhoods within the Union Five. But we still want to maintain, like, there's Gamblers, there's Honey Orchard, there's Stewart, like, we have all these very distinct neighborhoods within the region. We have to talk to and want to connect with it.
So would a healthy environment community, that is what I'm saying, establish neighborhood, I mean, it does that.
Yeah, that's what I like about number two.
I like number 2 very much personally.
The other thing I like about the South, Southern, vision statement is it's an action statement. It's like communicating, keep, what was it again?
South County.
South County rule.
Yeah.
It's an action, it's like a state of, you know, to planners, to the city politicians, to the city makers. This is what we want our area to be.
It's got an exclamation point on it.
It does.
Well,
Do we certainly add? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, I just thought that was kind of interesting, phrase that, it's not a, here's who we are, it's, this is what we want to do. So what does Region 5 want to be then?
So which of the three are you zeroing in on?
Well,
Or do you want to?
I voted for number 2, but I think it's too long still. And I think it's still too long. But it's getting there.
And you can take out is creative and make that a lot less positive.
Yeah,
Is
so-
that region, is that the region 2, region 2?
Yeah, so I was just bringing up the region 2, and I just want to be clear that, this, a vision statement as, we're developing it is meant that if you were to go away, leave town for 20 years and then come back, you are now describing region 5 in 20 years. So region 5 is. And again, we don't necessarily need to get into the grammar tonight. I think the idea is just to sort of get some consensus on, you know, get this to like 95%.
Take out that it's created, it's unnecessary. And then I like Jill's, I'm sorry, what did you, intentional, what did you say?
Intentional growth.
Intentional.
Is
Somewhere.
that
near
near,
the
like,
end,
possibly
at the end,
redevelop perhaps,
intentional
or you need redevelopment? Then redevelop is.
You don't need to hit it.
Intentional growth.
Oh, that
The
would be, yeah.
community aware.
Yeah, so that whole
Yeah.
You don't need to.
line should be, commercial areas are thoughtfully redeveloped, would just be intentional growth. Is that where you're going? Jim?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta capture the water.
Get rid of commercial areas.
I actually wonder if you just spread that whole bottom, yeah, intentional growth, because that captures everything. It's general.
And period after preserve the new sentence school.
Yeah.
And period after efficiently, a new sentence safe.
Yeah.
Efficient.
Do people understand multimodal?
No.
There's no.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, yeah, the plan. No, I just asked because like, I feel like it could be a term.
Accessible transportation or,
No,
I think you have to say bicycle pedestrian.
Yeah, bicycle pedestrian, because ultimately that's what we're targeting, right? Bicycle pedestrian, not necessarily like bus, train, well, I guess train, yes.
Is that
Of course,
kind
you
of-
want people on trains,
Was it
but
connectivity used in one of the other senses that kind of captures that as well?
We do have.
Connectivity.
Do you want to look back up?
oh yeah, you don't need the comma anymore, that's why it's under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can get rid of the first is, after community. In the first sentence, yeah. A healthy, vibrant community right natural areas.
Yeah.
Bicycle pedestrian. And trails. And that really was the regional amenities. And that's a big.
You have the connectivity there.
Yeah.
Stream connectivity, some of it's in the issue. What does that mean? Insurance connected to the. I know what it means. It's spoken for.
I know the thoughts that went behind the word intentional. But I also know a lot of people who would think that that means we're growing. Whether you like it or not, in terms of the semantics for intentional.
Responsible growth.
Yeah, I like that. Good word.
I mean, what was the survey, what did the survey say about growth? They don't want it, nobody wants it.
Yeah, I think that's,
Right.
that's the general consensus.
So if we say responsible growth.
Yeah.
Right, but it's not a part of the zoning exercises to accommodate growth. We
Say that
can't
again.
just ignore it.
Yeah.
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 They know, like,
I will
one of
say-
the last sentence is that responsible growth is kind of the transportation.
Yeah.
And they were talking about responsible growth and reference more to.
Yeah, the and responsible growth is a little weird sitting there by
Yeah.
itself.
Like that is actually a separate thought. And
Yeah,
might need to be-
just that.
Yeah.
It might need to be broken out into a short sentence on its responsible.
I think growth captures, the reason why we were able to strike commercial areas and stuff, because I think growth captures everything, it captures green space. Yes, I guess you could argue that it could capture development, but it more so means, like, I see it as more so like areas we want to grow in.
What is that, when you do something like responsible growth? There's a section at the bottom that says around infrastructure, so we can pull that up and be more specific about responsible growth, so it's its own sentence.
Or even move that responsible growth to the end of the first sentence.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because right now it's
preserve and responsible growth or something. Some sort of-
Or preserve
verb
with
there.
responsible growth,
And growth
True.
is.
through responsible growth.
It's kind of tough to, you're preserving it.
We're words.
Yeah.
Need a different verb there. I thought it was a verb. Preserve and.
growth.
I have the thesaurus of it.
So there you go. While allowing for responsible growth,
Accommodating.
or accommodating responsible growth.
Honored,
Two M's. One of those spelling bee words.
respected while accommodating responsible growth instead of preserved. Preserve.
And establish this preserve.
We also don't have affordable in there anymore.
About while growing responsibility.
I don't know if we wanna throw in instead of vibrant, affordable or something, healthy, affordable.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do need, I think affordability.
Accommodating responsible growth doesn't cover that?
I don't think so, because,
I think the word affordable should be. in there.
yeah,
Okay.
Right. To emphasize that. Maybe get rid of vibrant and put it there.
I think it's a sense of community, is what you're trying to get at.
Well, yeah, like a strong,
Right.
strong community. Yeah, vibrant is kind of like a defined, it has a definition to it, so it's recognizable.
Instead of more accommodating responsible growth, while growing responsibly. It's a little shorter and a little more.
I think we're getting closer on that first sentence, the last two then, are maybe not as strong. Because the first one's stronger.
Yeah, I'll argue that the schools are supporting expanding kind of all under growing responsibly. But I'm also have an education background, so like the schools are pulled out.
Or touch the subject,
Yeah.
if there are enough of them, so I don't know, maybe we should ask. Just
It's tough because that's a county-wide thing, right? Not specific to our region. That's a whole.
We're making a statement.
Right.
You want to take a quick peek at the other two and see if there's already some words within these that.
Just make it worse.
Right.
Can you read that? Do you want me to bump up on? Anything there you want to pull? Go through this one here. Here's the sentence about schools.
It might help to take out the strike throughs out, so we have a little sense of what the paragraph actually reads to the strike through.
Yeah, in the past, we've used the strike through because sometimes we flip flop on decisions and sometimes you go back and you say, oh, actually, I did want to keep
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I have what it was originally printed out.
I feel like change your view, and so.
Okay,
talk
we can-
edit view.
we can accept all changes then if that's.
Two, not three, right?
Okay.
Well, even,
Yeah.
even two, just clean it up.
You just want to work with it. Okay.
We feel like this person's doing something, anything we need about it, even. What we want to see, what do you need about it?
Well, my first thought is that we do have green space. I mean, not a lot of it is areas, but overall, in comparison to other regions, we do still have, our green space, our natural spaces, so.
So does that make it still feel something rural? Not, that's, yeah.
I'm kind of stuck on the schools line right now. I feel like we don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I say the schools were one of the top 5 items in the feedback summary.
I know, but it's also like. Always, like, to me, it's like always a school, like, schools are always gonna be a problem, right? So like. When I read this, it's almost like it's getting in the way for me. I'm like, oh yeah, the schools. But it could just be me, so.
Yeah, the balance is
Like I
making,
said before, if you went away for 20 years, you keep that.
Schools are still gonna be a problem. Guaranteed.
That they're not the problem.
I would hope not, but it's more so, I think. I would feel differently if we didn't have county schools, right? If we had individual school districts that were centered around towns and cities, I think it would be a little bit different for me. So, to keep versus not, so.
This version does seem to me to sort of begin to paint a feeling of Vision 5. Hubs of established neighborhoods and commercial areas interspersed with beautiful natural areas connected with bicycle pedestrian and transportation alternatives, which we're lacking now, 20 years from now, we can get to. And so, not sprawl, but neighborhoods and commercial districts interconnected with roads and bicycle pedestrian transportation and natural spaces.
I recall somebody mentioning like a little, lack of clarity with connectivity, leaving it just kind of out there. So what if that said ensuring connectivity with commercial and natural? Something, you know, because you got,
With local areas or
Is advanced,
with local resources.
or just say it's advanced to connect from all.
Active.
Active, rather than. Instead of ensuring connectivity, we said to connect. Active.
Or you can do like ensuring connectivity to valuable amenities or something.
Yeah, community amendment.
with community amenities, that's good, yeah.
Natural resources.
And I think that may start, the one thing I think we're missing is like community centers.
Yeah.
We don't have community centers, and that's what we would like, and it sounds like it's what we need and what we would like.
Right,
Well, can we add sentence that says like public amenities support?
Bus pedestrian transportation. Route and that. More. Community.
Or you just put some type of word in the, for community amenities, like,
Well, I
I
think,
don't wanna say adequate, but, like,
I don't know if this is the right sentence to do it in. Because this seems like it's about transportation, right?
Yeah.
Where the first sentence,
mhm.
is capturing the, like, landmarks, if you will, of the,
The feel of where we live.
yeah.
Mhm.
Established neighborhood.
You don't need that comma after safe, it's not. You know, it's not safe,
Right, it
comma,
was
bicycle.
something.
It was just gonna be.
Yeah, yeah.
Eventually grow.
Say safe bicycle pedestrian transportation. Connects people to natural areas. Something community amenities.
The natural areas are part of the community.
Is that
amenities.
not covered by, bicycle and pedestrian transportation is advanced by ensuring connectivity, is that not covered by ensuring connectivity?
It's just an active voice to say that safe bicycle pedestrian, we're talking about what is it like 20 years from now. So we could just say that what it looks like is there is safe bicycle pedestrian transportation that connects people to what, to community amenities.
I'm just putting something out there.
Larry's built
Right.
environment.
So, right, because you wanna be able to connect people right to your community
Yeah.
amenities, the natural areas, but then also shopping,
Commercial
right?
areas.
Yep, you're right, and your housing, right?
I do think it makes sense to have a second sentence that's kind of transportation focused, because I don't know, my feel is Route 3 really dominates our region as far as a focus, dividing line, you know, it does a lot of things, and not necessarily well. And it is something that has to be contended with, you know, to, reduce the vehicular dependence and not let it override the neighborhoods and things like that. So I think in a way, you know, the first sentence is more about preserving our open space and things like that. And it might make sense for the second sentence to be transportation focused. We also have the train station and Route 3 and, but I wonder if we wanna maybe incorporate those ideas a little more about, the idea of like, I don't know the right words, but I'll just throw it out there. Kind of like limiting or retrofitting existing, you know, major transportation corridors while, you know, providing more safe bicycle and pedestrian transportation or shifting the focus to bicycle pedestrian focus. You know, like we have these existing major transportation corridors that are functioning well for train, for cars. But we want to try and just shift the focus more towards enhancing the bicycle and pedestrian that connect the residents to these areas. I don't know if we want to throw that in a sentence to kind of emphasize the idea of trying to deal with these large existing transportation corridors we have somehow. Is it, or
What do you think about our prioritize and connect people?
Can you note something about purposeful expansion of what main transportation thoroughfares? There's gotta be a better way to say that.
major transportation
Major
corridors?
transportation thoroughfares.
Do you think, Julie?
Well, I
Or
think,
just trash?
general transportation, because that would capture the train station and Route 3.
To me, this contract, I think growing responsibly. It's
Yeah.
Sort of like the catch.
What about
Is that
improvement instead of expansion?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Improvement instead of expansion of the existing corridor.
Yeah, and then part of growing responsibly.
It wasn't the point that, expansion was, to be bicycle pedestrian, not necessarily.
I'm just thinking the Odenton train station really should be expanded, right?
yeah.
Well, it's not to be. Yeah.
And it's about to be, but that's like where you want expansion to happen where it is, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
but are we asking for something that's already going to happen?
I think, well, what in 20 years, there's additional, I don't know, services that need to happen or something at that train station. Maybe an Amtrak stop needs to come there, and it's not. So that's just stuff that I'm thinking of. Cause that's like thoughtful, purposeful expansion of a major transportation hub.
What do you think about adding the transportation?
I think the big thing is, to Jill's point, acknowledging that we have those two transportation hubs in the vision statement, because they do dominate our region a lot.
And they should be capitalized on, but thoughtfully, or
Yeah.
intentionally, or whatever word you wanna use, right? But yeah, we have, I think that's something unique about this region, is those major transportation corridors, and we wanna use them, but make sure they're, you know, not overriding the communities, right? While we add bike and ped and those things, make those modes of transportation catch up with, you know, the road.
Maybe it's to support, purposeful expansion, so comma, to support purposeful expansion of major transportation corridors. And maybe expansion is not the right word, right?
Yeah, I'm just worried people are gonna think we're expanding this, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what, I think purposeful was, should be thoughtful expansion.
I mean, I think, I don't know.
We
if
call it
that last
improvement.
phrase.
Yeah.
Or that's the word intentional.
No,
We almost wanna say like we wanna capitalize on existing major transportation.
Yeah, there you go, capitalize.
Something like along those lines, like we wanna take advantage of it. Not necessarily have to expand it or enhance it or something, but we wanna like use it to the most we can.
No.
Don't use that.
It's funny, it's like strongest matches for capitalize, exploit, take advantage.
But something like that, we wanna be able to use it. Use the existing ones to the most possible.
Yeah. I don't think you want to use that. Yeah.
So there was a thread of public amenities at one point, so maybe take that.
Well, I think, but we are going back to that, we are capturing, and maybe it can go in the
Community
first,
amenities.
but we're not addressing the need and the desire to build the community hubs that we don't have / like expanded needs that we're like in right now. It might, I think it might be something that can go in the first sentence.
Well, this is.
What they do, they're not
There are
doing.
senses.
I would suggest, again, it's a vision statement, and if your objective is to increase community amenities, then 20 years from now, when you look at your vision statement, they're gonna say, where are those community amenities that were in your vision statement? So it's a given that you're working on, and it's a part of your vision. And then the details of how that happens are in your objectives.
Is there a better way to define parks?
No, it's parks, I mean.
Like a more generic term that would capture
When other people are reading this.
other like
Okay.
community services.
That was the intent of amenities, right? Because it could be retail, it could be a park, it could be a top lot, some of the things are.
I think there was
Community
strong
facilities?
interest in the green spaces, but I think most people think of versus a building. So I don't think you want to consider it.
Would you say, want to say community facilities? Instead of parks, or
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like,
you think
No,
that's
parks is-
building?
Parks is a high rank
Okay.
in the regional survey.
but also community facilities were noted as an item as well.
Right, and I don't want to amend it, plant one or the other.
But that's to connect,
Right, yeah.
that's for transportation to connect to those. I just don't, at no point do we say, hey, by the way, we want to make sure our community amenities are growing purposefully.
But if you're looking at this as a vision statement 20 years from now, we have to have something to connect to. So like the community amenities would have to be built for us to have the connectivity to them.
But we're not telling people that we want to grow those community amenities. You know what I mean? And that's what I've heard all along, that folks want to grow those community amenities and the connection to those community amenities. Whether they were built, a park, trail.
Can we just add to new community amenities?
Where?
Like, yeah, connect people to new community amenities.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, I think that would capture that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I'm a little frightened by them to capitalize on the.
Yeah. That scares me.
Yeah, we didn't-
Because I've been here long enough that I've seen what that can do.
Yeah,
Utilize?
I don't think we need it. Why do we need it?
Yeah.
Because they're still gonna be there.
Yeah.
I think the point is you're just sort of elevating like pedestrian and public transportation. That those have been prioritized over the past 20 years.
Yes, the only reason I can see talking about the corridors is if we're gonna talk about it as like safe and like increasing safe transportation along those. But, that's not how I read it the way it's currently.
I think we should had a good point when they said improve, you could change capitalize to improve. And I think that would kind of.
That's true, yeah.
Improve.
Or changing it so it's improved major transportation corridors, small prioritizing earns. Yeah.
Yeah. Still improved to me says Bill, that could be improved in this, now says Bill, we send me safety.
But the problem is if we take away the sentence, how our region is formed around Route 3, right? So I feel like it would be ignorant not to, acknowledge
Our
transportation.
entire region is not formed around Route 3. Crofton is, but you've got.
I more so mean, it's a main hub, that's what I mean, I don't mean like
It's a very
getting down to
hot
the
topic.
derivation
Very
of the
hot topic
area.
right now. And people don't want to hear about it, they don't wanna see any more growth, they don't wanna see any, I mean, it's a very hot emotional.
I understand.
topic for people.
So then how do we make that emotion and channel it into a vision? So folks know, like, this is the direction we wanna go with Route 3, because I feel like if we do
I
not,
don't think that this
Define-
whole committee in Region 5 can do anything to quail the fears of people.
well, sure we can, with zoning, right? That's what you do.
On here. I
But
don't
this is
think
a zoning vision statement, right?
This is,
Bicycle pedestrian and public transportation are prioritized. Are prioritized for the major transportation corridors to connect people. The corridors separate people. Particularly Route 3 and other highways in the region, very people sensitive. So we want to correct that in 20 years.
I think that's a good.
Would you take out the and put two connectors? After corridors?
Yeah, I think that, because that's really what we want, right? Right.
Oh, yeah, we want bridges over Route 3.
Yeah.
yeah, but you also do want them amongst the subdivisions with cul-de-sacs, right? Is
Yeah.
making sure that all the other smaller, say, road networks and communities are connected, so my concern is that it's just sort of focusing on just Maryland, right? For example, any of the major transportation corridors.
When I hear major, I also think like 450, you know, even Watchung Road to a certain extent is a major corridor,
Okay,
which is a lot of the places we've been talking about sidewalks and stuff, right?
okay.
And I like the phrase.
Yeah.
Do positive things.
Yeah, because that's ultimately what we're missing, right?
Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah.
Doing it in
can't
our
walk.
prior.
Yeah, you can't. No, exactly.
Prioritize, yeah, you can, right?
I guess I don't know if I would read the word or in my misunderstanding, but would it be prioritized over the
It's
major
for-
transportation or prioritized?
I think y'all were saying that it's for these major corridors, to make sure that they're integrated. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We still have another chance right there.
So, yeah, one way you can look at this is, this, as Steve had mentioned, right, this is the umbrella. We've been working on strategies down here. We'll be working on zoning and land use shortly. And all that is gonna then, when you look at the strategies and the zoning, are you gonna be able to say that what we've done here and what we're recommending will create this community in 20 years? Right? So does everything support this vision statement? Right, in the past, we've talked about, making sure that we have, Lisa was mentioning earlier, making sure that all of our trail connections across streets are safe for everybody. Check, right? that we've got bicycle pedestrian facilities, we talked about sidewalks on, several of the roads here, check. Right, when we talk about, when we get into zoning, we're gonna make sure that, right? Y'all, I'm assuming aren't gonna be recommending high density everywhere in region 5. And that you're probably gonna be focusing some of that growth to, say, for example, go to town center where there is the infrastructure, where there is public transportation, check. Making sure that people are connected to parks, that we have enough parks.
Save the dairy farm.
Right, save the dairy farm, save Woodwardville. Right, so I think you're already checking a lot of boxes here already with a lot of the strategies that we just, or some of the issues that we discussed and some of the strategies. So, Joe, what you had mentioned is we get another crack at this, right, as we're talking about it here tonight. We've still got to go through zoning, and then when we come back in the summer and reconvene, we can revisit the vision statement and say, right, based on everything so far, now that you've seen all the strategies, now that we've gone through the zoning exercise, does this really encapsulate everything that we've talked about, all the issues? So if you think we're 95% of the way there, then, you know, this might be a good stopping point for tonight, knowing that, you know, there might be still some more information here over the next few months that could help inform some of your decision-making and consensus on this. Consensus on it. Okay. And, you know, I see you taking pictures. I can send this out to you all, just so you can noodle on it. Don't noodle on it every day for the next 4 months. You know, take a peek every now and then and see if it's still the right fit. Okay. This is good. Yeah, good work. I like it. Okay, let me go back to the slide deck here. So public comment. So next up, Christine, I'll hand it over to you.
So I'd like to take this time to welcome public comment. If you're interested in speaking, please raise your hand and state your name. We'll identify those members of the public in person and then identify those attending via Zoom. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. If you would like to share more information, please email the Region 5 team at region5@aacounty.org. Okay. Go ahead. Oh, the woman on the right there.
Just have 2 things to say. One thing about the group here, the 2 gentlemen, for earning their merit badge, communication, and then this, scenario. Still right,
Great.
And I just have one thing, board, I agree that we need a public building of our kids. And if it's something that you constructed on board, that would make you include basketball, football, and table tennis and social media.
And ma'am, did you sign in on the sign-in sheet right there as well?
I signed in.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. Do you need her name at all?
We're good.
You'll get from Liz? Okay, perfect. Okay, and go ahead.
My name is Jan Randall, and I have serious reservations about the school numbers that have been presented. Rivers Elementary was forecast to have 505 students this year. It has 557 students. There remains 150 plus homes yet to be built in the estuary. Those are all ages homes. They will have many kids. So these schools are going to be overpowered.
Thank you. And I encourage you to voice your opinions on the redistricting info as well.
I don't have a school age child.
You could still, talk on the, we can comment.
There's a survey available.
Yeah.
Public approval, so, yeah.
Yeah, and, I'm sure we can, share that information. I think it's posted right on AACP. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we'll
Yeah.
post this slide deck in the next day or two, so if you don't wanna write all that down, you can just
Yeah.
visit. Our website, which is, they're also at the bottom, if you wanna write that one down, aacounty.org/region5. And we'll have that link ready to.
And I would just like to say, I do agree with you, and that's why I was trying to ask the question, because I've heard from several parents and, you know, their children that go there, and teachers, and the road, you know, there's several issues with that, so
I'm disappointed they left. Because there's also a possibility of 217 more
Yeah,
all ages homes if they go in.
yeah.
And that is just monumental in terms of the amount of children that are gonna be in these schools.
and Piney Orchard is already, or capacity.
There are 3 schools closed in the Arundel district, 3 schools closed in the.
Yes.
That's why I raised that issue with Kyle about what input he has to planning zoning in terms of the schools and education, because I know that the developers are trying to get 337 more homes over at 2 Rivers, 217 of which are all ages. Yes.
And, so we can, the way we can respond, the reason why I noted to make sure you provide comment there, because that's the direct vehicle to the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. But the way we can address things is through land use, right? And making sure that we have purposeful growth. So, that's something we'll have to talk about more since 2 Rivers has already been established and everything. I don't know how much our Region 5 team can, SAC committee can respond to those things.
Yeah, and I think one of the previous items that we had discussed, this is parcel O of 2 Rivers, was preserving it as a park. And you can put that as a strategy.
Mhm.
So.
Gotcha.
So they have put in a site plan, but they may need a special exception to amend the PUD.
Right, that.
And you know the timeline?
I don't, no.
It's fine, I can find out. Thank you.
Any other public comment in here? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
No attendees are on track.
Okay. Then with that, did you have next steps,
Say,
right?
close this out.
So as always, we got our next step up on the board. Our next meeting will be here again, April 23rd, 5:30. It'll be our last topical meeting. It'll be open topical meeting. We'll be talking about land use and zoning, sort of the primer to get you guys started thinking about those topics prior to the mapping exercise we'll be conducting in May. But we have posted that link to that survey to the Anne Arundel County Public Schools Phase 2 redistricting study. I think Kyle mentioned that it's no one closed on May 1st, closed on May 15th.
Yeah.
So make sure you guys fill that out, take a look, give it to friends, neighbors, colleagues.
You can just send the April one here, that's the Crofton.
Yeah, it says Crofton in the.
Sorry, I was mistaken. Yeah, April 23rd, the meeting is at the Crofton Library. Yeah, sorry.
So that means we have to end promptly at 7:45?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like Sam said, is that meeting will go through, providing you an explanation of what development policy areas are, development policy area overlays, land use zoning, because we'll be reviewing those maps then at those, May meetings. And we'll go through sort of the process of how we'll be reviewing those maps as well and making decisions about zoning.
There's gonna be 2 meetings in May?
That's right. Yeah, so we had originally thought we could do a Saturday meeting when I put out the doodle poll. There was very low availability for Saturday meetings in May. And so we will have to do back-to-back, Wednesday evening meetings. Okay.
Remember, if you have any more questions, comments, concerns that you want to let us know, the email is available at the bottom, just fire that over whenever you guys are ready to send that.
Yep, and if you do have any other questions about, our meeting dates, I heard it earlier, go to this website here at the bottom. And under the stay involved section, you'll find, again, upcoming meeting dates, as well as past meeting dates with all the materials, including the presentation, the slide deck, I mean, as well as a recording of the meeting, as well as meeting notes. So. It's all yours.
With that, is there a motion to adjourn meeting? Nita is, oh,
Sorry,
are you seconding?
I'll second.
Okay. Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, with that, the meeting has been adjourned at 7:26 PM.